Okay, to start, if we get into the game menu by going to options and you see controls, what I want you to do is to go down and look at your jet buttons and your heli buttons and change the setting to veteran for both. With that, what that's going to allow is for you to use your triggers as controlling your speed. So your right trigger and left trigger will be to control your speed. So your right trigger will be to throttle up, your left trigger will be to throttle down. So basically like gas and brake, speed up, slow down. Your fire button is going to be right above your left finger. That's going to be the left button. You'll use that to fire with. So a lot of times if you have to slow down for a target, you can actually slow down and put your finger on the trigger at the same time and steady your jet, where you got more controls and you can get more hits on the vehicle or the jets or even the ground troops that you're shooting at. All the other things right now, don't worry about. I play with the high sensitivity when it comes to my vehicles or come to the jets. I just like the ability to be able to turn on a dime. I don't use the jet roll cameras in the game because it basically changes a lot of the views, and sometimes it's just an inconvenient change for me. Until I get used to it, I don't really fly with it that much. I keep everything else normal. But again, look at your heli buttons and your jet buttons and make sure that they are set for veteran. Okay, so moving to the missiles with the stealth jets, you have the heat seekers, the passive radar, the laser guided, and the active radar. All of these are lock-on type missiles except for the active radar. With heat seekers, you can lock on your target. Once you get the lock, fire your missiles, and you can pull out of the lock. With your passive radar missiles, the advantage with those is you can pre-fire those before you get a lock, gain your lock, and hold it until the missiles actually hit your aircraft or air target. The laser guided missiles, you have to hold the lock all the way through. Once you're able to obtain the lock, you hold that lock until that missile hits its target. And again, like I said, with the active radar, you're actually able to just fire it in the air and it should hit anything that's airborne, provided they're not using ECM jammers to throw it off. So what we're going to move into next is the countermeasures. And with the countermeasures, basically you have IR flares, ECM jammers, and fire extinguishers. The fire extinguisher, you won't find too many pilots using it because it doesn't really offer a lot of protection, but your IR flares are flares that work really effectively against heat seekers, but not well against lock-ons like your passive or active radar missiles. Your ECM jammer is just the opposite. It works well against passive radar and active radar missiles, but you can still get hit with heat seekers. And as far as the fire extinguisher, like I said, pilots don't really use it because it's really kind of a handicap. You take the damage and you have to keep using the extinguisher, whereas your countermeasures will allow some type of protection. Moving on, for your new pilots with your upgrades, I would highly recommend your gyro stabilizer to use it often until you get used to flying your jets and controlling your jets even after taking critical hits. Gyro stabilizer will automatically help you stable out your jet and get you out of trouble. Your stealth coding makes it harder for people to spot you or lock onto you, so it gives you a little more time when someone's trying to lock onto you for them to actually gain a lock. There are a few pilots that will use that. Myself personally, I don't. Belt feeder allows you to load your guns a lot faster. Definitely once you get used to controlling your jet, I would suggest switching over to your belt feeder if you use your guns a lot as opposed to using the missiles a lot. And then finally, your proximity scan. Flying with that will actually help you spot and put troops on the map, on their mini maps as you're in combat. Okay guys, first of all, what we're going to look at with the attack jet is that it only comes with one type of gun, which are 30mm guns. Next, after the 30mm guns, and we'll get back to that, we'll look at the rocket systems that are available. Like the stealth jet, you have the laser guided rockets, you have the heat seekers, which are also lock-on rockets, and between the two of these you have to hold your lock with the laser guided, and with the heat seekers you can just lock, fire, and forget. You also have the Hydra rockets, which you can use on infantry and some light armor on the ground. Pretty effective if you have a good aim and you see a lot of troops on the ground. However, it takes a lot of them to damage a tank. TV guided missiles, of course, if you've ever used these, you know that once you fire it, you actually have to guide it from firing to its destination towards a designated target. They can deliver some damage. I wouldn't use them in a jet, though. And finally, the JDAM bomb. Of course, this is a Dom bomb. All you have to do is drop it in the vicinity of troops, and you're guaranteed kills. If you're flying this jet, you can also fly in with the guns, do a little bit of damage, and then drop a JDAM on it to finish it off. Okay, so now that we're in the jet, a couple things that I want to bring to your attention are, in first-person view, you're going to see on your left side your speed, on your right side your altitude. And your middle gauges are basically to let you know how level your jet is. And also on the D-pad, if you push up on the D-pad while you're in first-person view, you can turn and look out the cockpit to your left, your right, up and down. Now, what you're seeing here is where I'm flying in circles and I'm turning. My jet is vertical to the horizon. But what I want to show is that by reducing that speed down between 285 and 315, 318, you have a faster turn radius than you would if you were doing full speed turns. This is very important. So now as you see that I'm going in a circle, a vertical circle, you can see that my turns are pretty tight. I'm nowhere close to the ground from where I started my turns, and I'm nowhere near the ceiling. So I'm monitoring that speed, and what I'm doing is just I'm not even using afterburners, I'm just using regular boost to control the jet, and also using the throttle down buttons, which I pointed out to you earlier when setting up the controller, that you're going to use your left button or your left trigger and your right trigger as controls. Now, also, if you notice the horizon, use that as kind of a center point for your up and down. That if you're flying even with the horizon, that should put you about midways between the ceiling and the ground. And just kind of imagine that this is your workspace. So in that space, you want to kind of judge your movements, especially vertical movements, when to boost, when to brake, and it's just kind of a rule of thumb. When you're kind of even with the horizon, you're just going to pretty much go straight. Now, as you see now, I'm flying in a reverse camera to show you how your jet looks, and that reverse camera is going to come in pretty handy when you're in combat, especially if you have someone following you, because you can go into the reverse camera and then you can tap your right button to spot them if you go over your spawn. It's pretty handy if you don't have anybody that's helping you on the ground to spot vehicles or jets that are attacking you. Now, back in the first person view and firing the rockets, as you see, I'm just using basic heat seekers. As soon as I get a lock on my target, I hit them, I let it go, I switch back over to my guns. Your most the biggest advantage that you have here with the heat seekers, of course, like I said, is they lock on easy and you just fire them and forget them. Now, back to this reverse view, I do it a lot now because a lot of times if I'm getting locked onto it, I may not know where missiles are coming from. I can go to that view in the camera while I'm in combat, and I can find out or see what direction those missiles are coming from. And now, especially if I'm in the attack jet, I will be able to actually see where they're coming from, spot that vehicle or even that ground troop, and go back and fly over them and either strafe or drop a JDAM on them. And another thing is, this looks pretty cool when you're dropping a JDAM and you go into the rear view and you're able to see that JDAM hit the targets. Now, if you notice, I'm still controlling my speed as I fly this jet, and I want to just show you that I can do it from any angle and still not crash or not end up in the water. So here we are on Giants of Corellia, which is one of the larger maps. And again, what I'm doing is I'm practicing right now because it's pretty empty. But I want to see how well I can drop a JDAM on a target or on one of the objectives, and you see it hit very close, if not on top of the objective. And going into my rear view again, just to kind of see where I am on the map. Next we come to the session, or the section rather, where I'm going to cover just really basic stuff here, scissors and rolling, and what's the difference. Right now, you just watch me do barrel rolls. A lot of times people will confuse the two, but barrel rolls are just simply rolling the jet over in the tight circles and going all the way down, not really making any real maneuvers. Now, if you notice here, I'm taking bigger circles and they're unpredictable. And this is scissoring, which is really kind of a switch maneuver if you're being followed by another jet that's in close proximity. Also, I want you to kind of pay attention to where I'm doing the scissor maneuver so you can see just how effective it can be in a tight spot. The mountains that you see, I'm going to do a couple more scissor maneuvers in there, and I'm going to show you that not only would it be an evasive move in an open area, but even when you have cover, you can do a scissor maneuver and put yourself behind an object or an objective, or you can get yourself to quick cover where you cannot either recuperate or get away from a pursuing attacker. And the biggest advantage to these two moves is when you have a lot of pilots who fly in close to you, you can lose them pretty quickly by using a scissor maneuver or using barrel rolls in case if they're hot with their guns. Other moves, another switch maneuver I'll show you guys later, is a little more. It's not so complex, but it's pretty effective. And basically, I just want to give you the basics on how to stay alive longer in the air with the jets. And finally, we're going to recap what we covered so far. First thing is we set up the controllers so that we could get maximum usage from our controllers in flying the jets. One of the things I wanted to cover that I was unable to cover earlier is that your attack jets have one 30mm gun, and your fighter jets have a choice between 20mm, 25mm, and 30mm guns. Now the attack jet has dual barrels, whereas the stealth jet has only the single gun barrel. Other things we covered is managing your speed control. Make sure you're watching that your speed is between 285 and 315. Also, your awareness on the map. Where are you? Okay, well, in this portion, I'm going to just share with you some of the combat clips that I have and cover a few things. By no means am I going to be able to cover all aspects of flying, or even all the basic aspects in 10 minutes and 40 seconds, but I will give you a few things to look forward to. Now, when you're flying the attack jet or any jet, one of the things that you want to make sure of is that you have map awareness, where you are on the map, and how to get away if you need to in quick, fast, and in a hurry. Now, if you notice this guy that I'm shooting at, he keeps turning his broadside to me, or the broadside of his plane. In other words, he's flipping his plane sideways while he's taking hits. This makes him a bigger target, and it makes it easier for me to shoot him down. So conversely to that, when you're flying and someone's pursuing you, you want to try to give them the skinniest target possible. Sometimes you may have to look in your third-person rear to see where they are as being adjacent to you. Or you can look out your window if you go in the first-person view to see where they are and which evasive maneuver would be best. Another thing that you want to take a look at if you're being pursued is remember that you always have the element of surprise on the pursuer. You know exactly which direction you're going to turn. They're going to have to guess where you're going, and they're going to have to try to keep up with you. So don't be predictable. Predictable pilots always get shot down easily. Some other things that we can kind of add. Now, if you notice, my attacks on this map are pretty much toward the middle of the map, and then I come back to my spawn. The reason why I'm doing this is because our team hasn't really advanced too far over beyond the midway point of the map between our spawn and theirs. So you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to get too aggressive to where you get yourself in trouble and you can't get out. Now, if you recognize what I just did, I went into a third-person review and spotted the jet that was pursuing me, so that one, the the stationary AA could light it up, but also my wingman could see exactly where he was and if he was on target with him. So this is an example of working together as a team. And if you see again, still my attacks are to just halfway of the map, splitting the map in half, turning around, going back. Now, a lot of times you will come low and you have to swoop in to hit certain targets. I do it a lot. Other guys, they JDAM, they may JDAM from high above. I choose not to JDAM from high above because I want my kills to be swift. I don't want any troops or any vehicles get a chance to move out of the way before my bomb hit its target. Now, when pursuing, try not to stay low for a long period of time. If you're going to stay low, then make sure you're moving at a pretty good rate and that you're not flying in a straight line. And a lot of times you just don't want to fly in a straight line, period. Whether you're low or high in the air or near the ground, you become an easy target pretty much for anybody to scope in on and take shots at you. Moving right along, if you notice in this clip, I'm working along with a wingman that he's pretty much helping out with the air assets, and in return, I'm hitting everything in the water or on the ground. Now, with the attack jets are made specifically for that, to provide air support to the ground, and vice versa. Troops on the ground can let you know if you're communicating with them. If you have somebody that's tailing you, a lot of times pilots will have a tendency to fly low so they can stay off your radar, or hit their ECM jammers right about the time they're getting ready to attack you, and your radar won't pick them up until you're in the middle of an attack. So definitely communicate with your squad, communicate with your wingman if you have the opportunity to do so. This will help you become a more effective pilot. And again, if you're in the J-20 or F-35 or the Su-50, those are stealth jets. They're made for fighting air to air, and that's the reason they have the different miniguns that they can choose from, which are 20 millimeter, 25 millimeter, 30 millimeter, that they can switch up at any time in their loadouts, depending on what type of style they want to play with. The attack jets don't really have that capability, but overall I like the fact that it has two 30 millimeter cannons instead of one. Now, always remember when you're turning, keep your speeds between 285 and 315. Definitely, I have to stress that over and over because a lot of pilots will pursue me and they'll overfly. They'll bypass me because they're going too fast. They're not controlling their jet, and whereas they could have had a kill, now they end up being chased or killed. So definitely remember that. Another thing is, always remember that the nose of your jet is lower than your thrusters. So your most your fastest turns are going to come by raising the nose. So what I mean by raising the nose, if you cant your plane to the left or to the right and you pull back on the nose, your turns are going to be a lot sharper, a lot faster than if you were to try to push the nose down. It's just the mechanics of the jet, and it's pretty much true to life. When you look at a jet in real life, the nose of the jet sits higher than the thrusters, so it's in a position to take off. It's in a position to fly. So keep that in mind when you're making turns or you're making certain maneuvers. You always want to lead with the strength of the jet. Also, being able to spot other jets, other vehicles, ground troops. You can do it from the air. It helps out your team. It helps you out. If you decide that, okay, I flew by, I just spotted the anti-air, I missed it, but I'm going to get it on the way back. You can spot it so that you know exactly where to come back to. And then while you're firing on it, spot it again. So when you go into your JDAM screen, it stays lit up on your JDAM screen and you're able to drop your bomb effectively. And speaking of the JDAM screen, just really quick here, if you notice when I fly and I drop my JDAM bombs, there's a plus sign in front of my jet, which means that at any point that I hit my fire button for my JDAM to be released, that's the spot that it's going to hit. Now, the exception to the rules is pretty much when you're flying, say like I'm flying over this hotel and I drop a JDAM, I want to hit the top of the building. I'm coming down at an angle on top of an elevated structure, so I got to give a calculation that's not going to be true to what you see in your JDAM screen. So, practicing makes perfect, and being able to adapt to your vehicle and know what its capabilities are is going to be magnanimous in your play. Again, some of the other things I want to just kind of recap. Practice evasive maneuvers. If you're flying on a map that has mountains, that has trees, that has buildings, utilize those things to your advantage. Learn to fly in close and tight to buildings. Don't be afraid to crash when you practice it. That's going to be a great asset for you, because there are a lot of pilots that get overzealous. They get too anxious about shooting you down, and they will make grave mistakes in trying to follow you that close, that tight, and not knowing what your next move is going to be. So get used to controlling your plane where you can maneuver it in tight spaces. Another thing that helps out is that if you're in a jam, always go back to your AA or your spawn and try to either get your team to spot, or you spot yourself, the pursuer, and get them to fly over your spawn with you. And if you have them marked, your base AA will take over and start shooting, and make it an uncomfortable situation for them. If they choose to stay around and try to shoot you down before they are shot down, then you practice a few looping maneuvers and a couple of change maneuvers, just to keep them engaged over your AA. Because if they're good enough to tail you and you can't shake them, then what you want to do is keep them occupied until your AA takes them out, or shoots them down and takes them out of the game. Always play with confidence. Don't be overconfident. If you play overconfident, you're going to always make stupid mistakes. If you play too conservative, you're going to be an easy target. Get familiar with your vehicle. Be comfortable with your vehicle. And know that, hey, you're going to take some deaths. You're going to get shot down. There are going to be other pilots out there that play pretty well. But all in all, if you keep practicing and don't be afraid to try new things and kind of employ your own style, you'll be great. Thank you for listening. How are you able to get yourself out of the jam?